Welcome once again to the Duties of Parents from J.C. Ryle. We are now on to duty number 3, which is train your children with an abiding persuasion on your mind that much depends upon you. Grace is the strongest of all principles. See what a revolution grace effects when it comes to the heart of an old sinner, how it overturns the strongholds of Satan, how it casts down mountains, fills up alleys, makes crooked things straight, and new creates the whole man. Truly nothing is impossible to grace. Nature, too, is very strong. See how it struggles against the things of the kingdom of God, how it fights against every attempt to be more holy, how it keeps up an increasing warfare within us to the last hour of life. Nature, indeed, is very strong. But after nature and grace, undoubtedly, there is nothing more powerful than education. Early habits, if I may so speak, are everything with us under God. We are made what we are by training. Our character takes the form of that mold into which our first years are cast. We depend in vast measure on those things who bring us up. We get from them a color, a taste, a bias which cling to us more or less all our lives. We catch the language of our nurses and mothers and learn to speak it almost insensibly. And unquestionably we catch something of their manners, ways, and mind at the same time. Time only will show, I suspect, how much we all owe to early impressions, and how many things in us may be traced to the seeds sown in the days of our very infancy by those who were about us. A very learned Englishman, Mr. Locke, has gone so far as to say that of all men we meet with, 9 parts out of 10 are what they are, good or bad, useful or not, according to their education. And all this is one of God's merciful arrangements. He gives your children a mind that will receive impressions like moist clay. He gives them a disposition at the starting point of life to believe what you tell them, and to take for granted what you advise them, and to trust your word rather than strangers. He gives you, in short, a golden opportunity of doing them good. See that the opportunity is not neglected or thrown away. Once let slip, it is gone forever. Beware of the miserable delusion into which some have fallen, that parents can do nothing for their children, that you must leave them alone, wait for grace, and sit still. These persons have wishes for their children in Balaam's fashion. They would like them to die the death of a righteous man, but they do nothing to make them live his life. They desire much and have nothing. And the devil rejoices to see such reasoning, just as he always does over anything which seems to excuse indolence or to encourage neglect of means. I know that you cannot convert your child. I know well that they that are born again are born not of the will of man, but of the will of God. But I know also that God says expressly, train up a child in the way he should go, and that he never laid a command on man which he would not give man the grace to perform. And I know, too, that our duty is not to stand still and dispute, but to go forward and obey. It is just in the going forward that God will meet us. The path of obedience is the way in which he gives the blessing. We have only to do as the servants were commanded at the marriage feast in Cana, to fill the water pots with water, and we may safely leave it to the Lord to turn that water into wine. Duty number 4. Train with this thought continually before your eyes, that the soul of your child is the first thing to be considered. Precious, no doubt, are these little ones in your eyes, but if you love them, think often of their souls. No interest should weigh with you so much as their eternal interests. No part of them should be so dear to you as that part that will never die. The world, with all its glory, shall pass away. The hills shall melt. The heavens shall be wrapped together as a scroll. The sun shall cease to shine. But the spirit which dwells in those little creatures whom you love so well shall outlive them all, and whether in happiness or misery, I speak as a man, will depend on you. This is the thought that should be uppermost in your mind in all you do for your children. In every step you take about them, in every plan and scheme and arrangement that concerns them, do not leave out that mighty question, how will this affect their souls? Soul love is the soul of all love. To pet and pamper and indulge your child as if this world was all he had to look to and this life the only season for happiness. To do this is not true love, but cruelty. It is treating him like some beast of the earth which has but one world to look to, and nothing after death. It is hiding from him that grand truth which he ought to be made to learn from his very infancy, that the chief end of his life is the salvation of his soul. A true Christian must be no slave to fashion if he would train his child for heaven. He must not be content to do things merely because they are the custom of the world, to teach them and instruct them in certain ways merely because it is usual, to allow them to read books of questionable sort merely because everyone else reads them, to let them form habits of a doubtful tendency merely because they are the habits of the day. He must train with an eye to his children's souls. He must not be ashamed to hear his training called singular and strange. What if it is? The time is short. The fashion of this world passes away. He that has trained his children for heaven rather than for earth, for God rather than for man, he is the parent that will be called wise at last.